Welcome back to Everyday Elevations, the podcast where we transform ordinary moments into extraordinary outcomes. So today I'm very excited. I have an extra special guest today. Tia here is someone who grew up in an Italian family. She's a trained dancer. She's always balanced her love for movement with a challenging relationship with food. So while her dance career brought joy and obvious global travels, it also came with injuries and battles with eating disorders. So these experiences taught her the importance of understanding the body and nourishing it right. Now, as a wellness coach, Tia lives by a simple philosophy which was inspired by John Lennon. If I can help one person a day live happier, I've succeeded. So she specializes in empowering individuals who've tried everything to feel better, but lack the right tools. Her approach emphasizes respecting and nurturing the body through wholesome meals and appropriate exercise, helping others transform their lives. So with that, Tia, I would love to just let you tell people a little bit more about yourself besides that brief biography I gave, a little bit about your backstory, how you got to where you got to. And then we'll go from there. And thank you so much for coming on, by the way.
Yeah, Jason, I actually think you hit everything on the head, probably better than I might in the next few minutes. But yeah, my story really begins. I say I've been dancing since I was 2, and I've been in the industry since I was 2 because I was obsessed with my older sister. She was a dancer. I became a dancer. And I was just really loved it. Really good at it. One of those things that kind of carried me through life. Didn't really know what I was doing. So I just kept doing the thing I was really good at. And that brought me all the way up into my college years. I got a BA in dance, and then I also got my MFA in choreography and dance anthropology. So up into my mid-20s, it was very much a part of my life, as well as being Italian, as you said, which was centered around food. My God, we couldn't go to a Sunday dinner without having 7 different meals, 3 different proteins, vegetables, pastas, and never forget the regatta pie and the cannolis. So it was a very conflicting life growing up because I was constantly on this performative aspect. I was in the studio Monday through Saturday. And even in college, it ended up being in a traveling dance company, and it would turn into 10 hours of dancing a day between the classes I was taking, the companies I was working with, and the extra rehearsals on top of that when we had to choreograph, plan. Basically, our homework was to move, which was fun in college. But since I was so good at what I did and I went for so long, I ended up overusing my body a lot. And it was one of those industries where you are told like you are replaceable. So don't hurt yourself essentially. And if you do, figure out how to show up and be in the studio and then deal with that at home. And it caused a lot of injuries in my life. I realized later in life that I was hypermobile, which is a whole nother story for a whole nother podcast. But basically I'm too flexible, which didn't always was really great in the dance world and not good in the living your life, being okay, understanding your body. So yeah.
So I was going to say, can you explain a little bit more? Because for me, I hear that I'm like, oh, I wish I was flexible at all. That's like my biggest health issue.
Yeah. A lot of people, there's like the hypomobility and then there's the hypermobility. So hypermobility is like kind of crazy. And it's one of those things that it's really hard to diagnose. There's a study or test done that you can do. And it's like simple movements. It's like, oh, can your thumb touch your forearm? And I'm like, well, I can't do that. I'm not double jointed there. But then it's like, can your hands touch the floor? And I'm like, yeah, I've always been able to do that. Or it's like your elbow is like, I don't want to, it's kind of gross, but like my elbow just like bends backwards.
Oh, that's a little weird, but also it's fun to see. So
I'll never forget. I saw a picture when I was in 7th grade. So I was like 13 and I had my leg up by my head and I was holding my leg up And my elbow was just like, it was the first time I ever noticed it in my body. And I was like, what the hell is happening with my arms? And so hypermobility is basically you're super flexible. Your body doesn't produce as much collagen. And there's a lot of different things in it. It's one of these weird things that if you could have this, you could not, you could still be diagnosed with it, but you don't display all the symptoms. And for me, like with hypermobility, which led me into my health coaching, wellness life, I also had really bad gut issues. And so basically I'm too flexible. My body didn't understand how to use muscles and when to activate them at the right time. And so the overuse of my body, I was doing these crazy movements because I could, and I was being pushed into these movements because my body went there, but I wasn't actually activating the right muscles to support the movements, which ended up giving me tendonitis and bursitis in both my hips. By the time I was 16, I had to get cortisone shots and like could barely walk. And then when I was 20, I was in a like 7-hour long rehearsal, and I did a jump, and all of a sudden my back just went. And for 3 to 4 years, I didn't know what was wrong with it. I just like wouldn't be able to walk. They kept giving me like steroids and muscle relaxers and painkillers. And I was like, okay, but why does this keep happening? Like, I'm supposed to be a healthy person, and why does this keep happening? And when I was 24, I'll never forget, I was in Austria. I was doing a dance intensive. It happened again. And I was like literally on the subway, like crawling on my hands and knees back home because I just lost activation of my body. And I went to the doctors, and I finally was like, I need to figure this out. So I went and got MRI, had a tear in my disc in my lower back. And they were like, oh, you're way too young. I'll never forget. The doctor looked at me and goes, you're too young to be dealing with this. And I was like, okay, well, I am. And that kind of hurt my feelings because right. I was like, how could this been prevented? And he was like, well, it's probably years and years of buildup. And so that happened when I was about 24. And cycling back to my journey, I guess, to where I am today, as I had these crazy injuries. And I had a really bad eating disorder through it all. And I wasn't nourishing my body, wasn't taking care of it because, again, in the dance world, there's just constantly being watched. You're constantly being critiqued, which I think has helped me in a lot of different ways as an adult. Like I can kind of take a hit and be like, all right, we're going to roll with it and walk on. But when you're growing up in that lifestyle, and I was in competition dance, so I was constantly being put on stage. And like I said, I was pretty good at it. So they were like, okay, we're going to give you solos, and we're going to give you more solos, and we're going to put you in more classes, and we're going to put you on stage. And I'd win competitions. And so I'd be then in these convention areas where I'd be working with these very elite people, and I'd be like the demonstrator. And so over and over again of overuse of my body. At 16, I was already starting to feel these effects, and then got into college, and I got worse and worse. And on top of that, I wasn't feeding myself like nourishing foods. I didn't understand. I've always been a muscular person. Now I'm super grateful for that. I'm like, I'm sturdy. I'm going to last long. Like I love using my muscles now, but when you're growing up and you're surrounded by ballerinas that are waist thin, and when they bend over, they don't have a roll in their stomach, or their thighs don't touch. I was like, how am I supposed to like compete with this? Even though I was doing very well, but in my own head, I couldn't get out of the body comparison. And so I will never forget my Nana, love her to death, God rest her soul, but she was the one, she's an old Italian woman, like straight off the boat. And I'd sit down and I wouldn't eat one day, and she'd be like, why aren't you eating? Like I cooked all this food. And I was like, oh, it was me being restrictive and being like, I can't eat that. Like I can't enjoy this time with my family. I need to look a certain way. And then the next time I'd go and I'd have like a bowl of pasta, and she'd be like, you're too fat. Like you need to lose weight. And I'm like, last time I didn't eat enough, and this time now I'm too fat. Like what's going on here, Nana? So it was this very like interesting mix of food constantly being shoved down your face, but also if you ate it, you were also constantly being told how much you're eating and that you need to back off.
Yeah. Well, I imagine, like you said, like the whole dance thing. I have a couple friends who danced for years and they actually had eating disorders as well. Maybe similar reasoning behind it, but they were always self-conscious of their look, and comparing themselves to other dancers too. So they would do the same thing you did. So not even maybe, they were kind of doing very similar things to what you did. Maybe not for the same exact reasons, but it sounds like it's similar. I'm just curious, how common is that in the dance realm for that matter?
I may have a bit of dark humor, but if you come across a dancer, you're most likely going to come across an eating disorder. It's just in the another comment that set me over the edge when I was like deep in the throes of my eating disorder was in the company I was in college. We got the privilege of having custom made costumes, which is not normally a thing. Usually like you order them or you just kind of pull together what you have. But I had to audition to get in this company. The university ended up paying for the costumes and they have a costume designer. And so at the beginning of the year, you have to tell them like what your hair is and what you're going to look like essentially for the year. It's because they need to design the costume off of who you are, what your body is like. And this was not necessarily new, but it wasn't old. Growing up, you always had to wear certain makeup and look a certain way when you're performing. And you all have to have the fake eyelashes and you literally take makeup tutorial classes. So you can present yourself a certain way when you're on stage. And so it wasn't unusual for me to like have to go in, but to be getting something custom made, I was like, okay, wow, this is like amazing. I was so excited. I'm like, this is so cool. And one of my first fittings, she like takes a measurement of my rib cage and she's like, this is a beautifully large rib cage you have here. And I was like, I can't change my bones. Like, what is going on?
What a weird statement.
And that was the costume designer. Then you get into, we had this choreographer come in from another. So the company I was in, we would bring choreographers in. Some were from South America, some were from different parts of the US. Like it was really, it was an amazing experience. These are just like the little tidbits that weren't so beautiful and amazing. And it was right after summer break. It was my senior year. And we went in and it was like, we went in early. We moved back to school early to start this. And we were doing spins, like we were doing pirouettes and I don't expect you to know that. So just picture us all like twirling across the stage.
Oh no, I actually know that term. So when you said that, I was like, yes, I know that one.
Cool. So we were doing like chaîné turns, pirouettes. And with that comes a lot of core stability. It comes a lot of strength and it comes a lot of like understanding your body. And we were doing the turns and it was this whole sequence and it was just like nonstop. And we had been kind of on to practice. Like we hadn't been together. It was like one of our first as the new company. There was new people coming in. And I'll never forget the choreographer looked at us and she was like, I can see all of your lunches. And I was like, as in like we had stomachs.
Oh, no, I get it. That's just so rude.
But that was not uncommon at all to be told those things. And so, yeah, in the dance community, it is very toxic in that sense. But it has taught me a lot of different things. And I, again, in my little dark sense, I'm glad I went through it because I don't think it's just the dance community. I think there's a lot of women out there that get these little comments all the time. And my big thing is that people are going to keep making the comments. They're just not going to stop. You can't expect everyone else to shift for you, but how can we shift within our own minds and understanding and confidence within our own bodies to be like, yeah, that comment happened. Like, and I'm so strong in what I do now that I can walk away from it. And it might sit with you wrong, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, but you understand yourself enough and you understand what you do and how you respect your body that whatever everyone else thinks no longer matters.
I think that's very important and very underrated skill to have because it's so hard to build up your self-worth in today's society where we're that Instagram perfect life. Look at me. I got this in the first take nonsense they have that they only show the positives. They don't show what it took, the 200 different takes it took to get that perfect little snapshot and everything. And because we are this insanely instant gratification society
Mm-hmm.
that we expect everything just to go however you want, we are so quick to judge too. I don't know if technology made us worse as humans. I sometimes feel like it is, but I've noticed that, and this makes me feel old, but which I just noticed as internet became more and more prevalent, we became less and less filtered in life and less patient in correcting things in life as well. So people are a lot more harsh to you, and we end up being a lot more harsh on ourselves. So the fact that you were able to go through this, which by the way, I believe that everything happens for a reason in life, that you were meant to go through what you went through to get to what you're at now and where you're going to be down the line. It wasn't always that mentality. I used to be a very pessimistic, like victim blaming type individual, like, oh, well, why does this happen to me, but not him and her and blah, blah, blah. But through life, I realized that, hey, everything happens for a reason, whether we ever get to understand that reason. So I love the fact you came to those terms already. It's a very long tangent for me saying I love the fact you came to those terms, because it's very hard for people to do that. You'll note throughout this podcast, I go on little random rant tangents. That is part of my MO.
No, I love it. I'm a ranter too. I could just talk. People are like, you could talk to a wall. And I'm like, yeah, I have a lot of thoughts in my head.
See, perfect for a podcast.
I know. Yeah. So another thing that I really live by, and what I try to instill in my clients, is that there's only two things in this world that you can truly control. And that is how you treat yourself and how you treat others. And I 100% agree with you on the social media thing. I think it's so cool. I love looking at funny videos, and I'm like, people are so funny. Like, they're so creative. This is awesome. And it brightens my day. But if I really look at it, about 90% of the time I'm on the phone, I'm looking at where I used to. I've been really conscious and cognizant of this moving forward, but I'm just looking at comparisons. And a big reason why I talk about my story and why I move forward is that I'm not perfect. Like, it's so funny when people come up to me and they're like, your life looks so great. And it is in so many different ways. But I'm also like, don't you think for a second that I haven't spent my days like laying on the floor, staring at the ceiling, being like, what am I doing with my life? Or I haven't been knocked down so many times. And I try to be very authentic in that with my clients, with what I've gone through on social media, as much as I can, because I do think that we live in this fabricated society, and it makes us feel very insecure about what we're doing as a human being. And I even have moments when I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to turn this old and I didn't achieve this and I'm not a millionaire yet. Like, what is wrong with me? And then I'm like, what the literal F is wrong with me, in the sense that why do I think I have to hit certain goals? And I have to look a certain way. And again, I try to be very authentic with my clients, that I'm never going to promise them that I can heal them, because I can't. They can heal themselves. And I can teach them tools, and I can educate them, and I can help them rid their bodies of anxiety through food. But like, the only fast fix in life is nothing. Like, it's literally the microwave, and I would actually recommend not using it. Like, and so we're fed all this kind of bull crap throughout our lives of like how we can do everything quickly. And really, it's the deep inner work that takes the time, but it is the most rewarding. And when you start today, you're going to look back in a year from now, and all of a sudden you're going to be like, wow, I mean, I'm not where I maybe thought I was going to be, but I know I'm on that path, and I know it's a clear, consistent, and it's a strong path, because it's built on this foundation of what I need as a human being, and not just what I think the extra outside world is telling me to do.
And I think that's an important distinction there, is that we do all this comparison, as we mentioned, on social media. But if you can just see the little bits of growth that you're making each day, because I used to be this comparison guy. I mean, we're talking 7 months ago, I was that guy. Until I created this podcast, like, this podcast completely changed my life, because it forced me to. Really, I should say my son changed my life. He's the reason why I created the podcast. And I now hold myself accountable and find better ways to deal with everything. And it just little things like just change your perspective. Hey, this is a win I got today. Like, mark down your wins. Who cares about the losses? Like, those are going to come. You're going to have more losses than you have wins on a day-to-day basis. I don't care if you're Jeff Bezos or if you're Jason Fricka, you're still going to get a lot of L's on the day, but find that little silver lining and your day is going to be so much better. And I can guarantee everybody has some sort of victory, no matter how small it is. I think once that kind of flipped in my brain, things started going into motion and happening for me. I managed to manifest some really cool things into my life. And that's a whole nother topic. It's a little more woo-woo than than what we're going to be talking about today by any means. But I love the fact that you touched on this stuff because it seems so simple, yet it's so difficult until you're ready to actually make that decision that, hey, I'm going to understand that I'm doing the best that I can today, regardless of the outcome. I'm making moves and it's going to be okay. I'm not going to be perfect. Nobody is. Life would be an incredibly boring place if we were all perfect. It would be like Stepford Wives, but even worse. Like, sorry, that movie was terrible to me. I know some people love it. I thought it was creepy and awful. Sorry, Nicole Kidman, not a fan of that movie. Not that she's ever going to listen to this, but if she does, my bad. You can tell me about why you did it after that.
Manifest Nicole Kidman.
Right? Yeah. just comes out of pockets, just straight trash talks me the whole time. Like, you know what? I'm still going to give views, so this is worth it. But no, I just love the fact that you're so open about this and that you're realistic with it. Because a lot of people that hide that, even coaches, a lot of coaches that I've come across, the reason why I have a hard time finding proper coaches, I've been fortunate I found a couple that really work really well for me. But I can tell when someone's being authentic and when they're not. And for you, it's abundantly clear that you are who you say you are. You carry yourself the same way. Based off of our 2 conversations, I can tell this right off the bat. And the fact that you talk about the things that went wrong and that, hey, I still struggle with this. That just makes it so much more believable. And I'm sure that's why you're successful as a wellness coach. Again, very long tangent, but I love the fact you touch on like the topic like that because I get so passionate about it because it's something that I personally struggle with. I know there's tons of people out there that struggle with it every day. And like you said, until you're ready to do it, no one can make you. No one's going to make you go on a health journey. You have to do it yourself. And there's no coach that can do the work for you. You have to do it. So there's a time, this is another tangent, but I signed up with a health and wellness coach. It'll be a quick one, I promise. And they gave me all this work and stuff. And I did the work, but never did the work, if that makes sense. Like I would write down answers to the questions, but I never really did the deep inner work. And then nothing happened. I'm like, well, yeah, this coaching sucked. It wasn't the coach's fault. Yeah. I wasn't ready to receive coaching at the moment. I think that's something that some people don't realize either. May not even be remotely aware that, hey, there's certain moments where you might not be ready for coaching and you have to understand and be authentic to yourself too. I certainly was not at that moment. Again, another tangent, but.
No, I love it. I actually really struggle. I have 2 things. I really struggle with the word coach, to be honest, because I'm not telling you what to do. Like I want to really help you dive in and understand your body. And so I don't really know how to it's a personal, again, one of those personal moments where I'm like, I'm not perfect. I don't even know how to market myself that great because I don't truly relate to the word coach, but I'm like, what is a word that encompasses that I try to walk you across the street while holding your hand? Like I try to show you the way and I'm there to support you, but I'm not going to tell you what to do because we're different. We're all different human beings. And like, yes, I can tell you to eat more protein. That's something we tap on. Absolutely. Because it's important. Like protein is what helps build your muscles. I tell you that rest is important. Like I'm going to touch on all of those things within my courses, but I'm also going to be like, but what feels good for you? Because I could tell you to sleep 9 hours, but maybe you feel good at 6 and that's okay because you're a different person. But maybe you need that like afternoon, like sit down at 2 p.m. and just like chill for an hour. And that's what really works with your body. Or I'm not going to tell you to chug a glass of water in the morning if that's like not necessarily what you need, but you really want to stay hydrated. So I tell you to eat some fruit, or like there's so many different nuances and ways. And I think a lot of people want it to be easy. So they just want this framework and they're like, just tell me exactly what to eat and why will it work for me? And I'm like, yes, I could absolutely sit down and do your macros with you, but it's not sustainable because after 2 weeks, you're going to be so sick of counting your calories. You're going to be so sick of counting the macros. You're going to be so sick of weighing your food that then you're going to go out into the world and it's just going to fall to shambles because you're like, oh my God, I just want to not have to do this. So what I work with my clients on is like, how do you create a sustainable life? How do you understand what's going in your body and understand how your body's responding to it? And then how do we go out into the world and not have to put our life into little tiny boxes and think that your body needs to fit into a certain movement style? Like you don't have to do CrossFit to lose weight. You don't have to meal prep to lose weight. Honestly, like you don't have to do, it makes your life easier sometimes, but it's not a necessity. And if you hate it, then you're not going to keep doing it. I am like the type of person that I'm like, do not tell me to do something. I hate doing things. Like even if I wanted to, it's a character flaw, I admit, but even if I want to do something and then someone's like, you should do that, I'm like, nope, not doing that. Like, how dare you tell me how to live my life? So I really try like to guide and to teach and educate, and not to be like, this is exactly what's going to work for you, because it could work for me and not work for you. It could work for both of us. It could work for neither of us. And that's where we get all these like fear mongering health coaches that come out and they're like 30 pounds in 30 days. Well, guess what? That's probably water weight and it's probably going to leave you feeling like crap. And then you're not going to want to keep going forward because you don't feel good. So that's one tap onto your rant. And now I'm taking my own rant. My biggest thing, and I can't take credit for this, I stole this from my husband. And I've always been a hiker. At least I thought I was a hiker. And then I married this man and he is like going to the bush for 7 days hiker. And I'm like, okay. Yeah. I'm like, well, we'll do like one night here and there. Like I'm not ready for like the 7-day trek with everything on my back, no showers type of hike yet. But he always told me when we were going on these hikes, he's like, small steps climb big mountains, small steps climb big mountains. And I definitely like when I'm staring down at my feet and it's hour 5 and I'm like, oh my God, we still have like 4 more hours to go. That plays in my head often and all the time. And to me, it's so necessary, not just when you're climbing a mountain. It's like when you have this vision and you know this life that you want to achieve is up here. I'm like, how does it look on the screen? Up here. And you sit down here and it just looks so unattainable. Like you look at the top and you're like, how am I going to do that? Like but then if you just do one action every day, 1% every single day. And I know that's a thing that goes around on social media all the time. But for me, I was like, what is 1%? Like, what does 1% mean? I'm not a numbers person, but I am a tiny little step forward is a tiny step forward. And you might get knocked down, but all those other steps that you took are going to build you up on this really nice platform that like, if you fall back one, you've set yourself up now to like, be like, okay, I can handle that hit. And sometimes hits suck and they're not great, but sometimes it's necessary to take them to have like a little wake up call. And I'll never forget like the smallest step for me when I was going through my eating disorder. So when I realized I like truly had a problem, I always kind of knew. My mom, like when I was 16, wanted me to go to therapy because I was literally just eating. My mom made these like amazing school lunches. She would like make homemade pesto and prosciutto and mozzarella. And like I would go to school and everyone would be jealous. She'd make these like gourmet salads and they're like, oh my God, with like fresh made chicken. And all I ate, like really what I remember eating in high school was almonds and dried apricots. And like, that's all I ate. And my mom was like, we would be at a dance competition all weekend and she'd get me a salad. She'd be like, please just eat it. Like, just eat the salad. And I'd be shaking. And I was like, no, like can't do it. Like, I'm going to look fat on stage. They told me like that my stomach was showing or X, Y, and Z. And so this like carried through college, and then college, I was living with other people. And so I kind of would shift into binging and purging because I was like, well, if I look like I'm eating with everyone, no one's going to really pay attention. And then I'll just go home and do what I need to do. And it was not good. It destroyed my body. It destroyed my gut, my esophagus, like everything. And I remember walking up, I was a junior in college, and I lived on the second floor of a condo. And I was walking up the stairs, and between all of the dancing I had done, and I was also a double major, I was doing journalism as well. And then I was also in that company, and I was just like burnt out. And I was walking up the stairs, and I don't even remember the last time I had eaten, or if I had eaten and thrown up, or what I was doing. And I just had to stop. And it was literally one level of stairs. And I was sitting on the stairs, and my heart was beating so fast. And I was like, what am I doing? Like, this is not helping me in any way. This is hurting me, if anything. And that was when I finally was like, okay, like I need to change this. And I wish I could say that within a day I was like, we're great. No, there was still like years of body dysmorphia. There's still years of like me like throwing up all the food I ate because I thought that's what I needed to do because I wasn't the thinnest in the group and I wasn't really treating myself well. And there was still years of that, but I'll never forget that moment being like, I need to make a change. Like this needs to stop because I'm 20 years old and I shouldn't be out of breath and my heart beating out of my chest just by walking up the stairs. And going back to like the smallest little moments, like you're saying, your small little wins, like we all take L's, but I had to go back to the basics, like ground level, and was like, okay, thank you, legs, for walking today. Thank you, eyes, for opening up. Thank you, heart, for beating when I couldn't find anything about my body I loved. And it would just be the like, thank you for letting me laugh today. Like it was all these things that I had to move through emotionally and mentally because I was like, I can't yet, but I see the future. But I was like, I can't yet look in the mirror and be like, I love my thick legs. But at the time I could be like, my legs have gotten me really far in my dance career and I can see that because that's like a tangible thing. And so I'll thank them for bringing me that far. And it was moments like that. And it was moments, honestly, like traveling alone that made me be like, okay, thank you for giving me the confidence that I can do this by myself. Because that was a really big thing. I just always felt like I was always moving as a group with the dance company and I loved that. But I was like, what can I do by myself? Like, really, what can I do by myself? And I started traveling alone. I started planning vacations alone. I went to, after I graduated from college, like went to Samoa and taught English. And I was probably at the most unhealthy I'd ever been. I was mentally like a mess. I just graduated college. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing with my life. Like, what have I just done for the last 4.5 years? But standing in front of kids that didn't speak English and like sitting with them and learning about their stories made me get out of my own head too and be like, what the hell am I doing? Like everyone has their struggles. My struggles are not like earth shattering. And I'm sure that other people are going through something similar. And so it just kind of started me on this path of like, okay, how do I gain confidence? I may be a bit extreme. My family says I'm a bit dramatic, but I just had to like fly to the other side of the world to gain that confidence. But it made me get out there in the world. And it also made me be like, thank you, mind. That was a huge one. I never thought I was smart enough. Like my sister, my best friend, love her, is an engineer. And she was an engineer at NASA when she was 21. And I was like, well, how am I supposed to compare to that? And she's my best friend. Like I love her to death. But I had a very way of thinking and being like, not thinking I was smart enough because I was more of the physical, I was more of the athlete. And so for me to like go out and I was like, oh, I can navigate the world by myself and I can teach English and I can connect with people empathetically. Like I had to find out what I was good at. And sometimes you have to take a step away and remove yourself from your own mind and like get yourself out there because too often we sit here in our own heads and we're like, I'm not good at this and I'm not good at that. And I don't compare to this person that way. And getting back to the social media, like it's just constant. Like, look at how much money this person's making. Look at what this person's doing. This person just ran 100 miles. And it's like, what? Like, what am I doing here? But when you go back to the basics and you're like, I make a mean coffee. I'm super proud of that. I love my coffee and I make a really good one. And some days when I'm feeling really crappy about myself, I'm like, I make a really good coffee, and I love that about myself. Like it doesn't have to be these monumental things. So it all comes back to that small steps climb big mountains. Like you don't have to be the best at everything, but you're really good at something, and be proud of that something that you're really good at.
Well, and see, there's two things I want to touch on, because there's really two key things that stood out to me during that little brief conversation there. So first thing is, when you're talking about how you're telling yourself, hey, thank you, legs, for working today, allow me to walk. Like those, it might seem minute to some, but that to me is the attitude of gratitude, being grateful for even the littlest of things. And again, it's going to be a little woo-woo, but I realized more and more as I started showing gratitude. I write a gratitude journal every morning now. Just 3 things that I'm grateful for. Technically, I do it while I'm brushing my teeth, but I can't say it out loud with a mouthful of toothpaste. But so I speak those, what I'm grateful for the day, and just like you, those little things kind of make you realize, hey, like I'm taking small little steps. Like life isn't as bad as what you make it out to be in your head sometimes. And so just that attitude of gratitude is incredible. So I love the fact you did that. There's another key word that I'm a huge fan of. You said yet. I am a big believer in putting yet towards just about anything that you haven't accomplished yet. Because what it means is that it's no longer unattainable. Mm-hmm. You just haven't figured out that skill set yet to attain it. I believe that for the most part, I'm never going to develop the skill set to do a double backflip. I'm 6'3" and inflexible and don't like being upside down. So a backflip's not going to happen. So I wouldn't put a yet on that. But hey, I want to become a millionaire. I haven't become a millionaire yet, but I know I will be at some point in time. And that's something I learned from one of my mentors, Jesse Itzler. When he was going through, if you don't know who he is, definitely look him up.
Yeah, I have to.
I'll send you his name here after the interview. But when he was building out his company, I forgot what the name of it was. It's like Jet Smart or something like that. I don't know. I can't remember what the name of it was. I should. He's probably going to read me for that next time he sees me. But if he even remembers who I am. But nonetheless, he's sitting there with his partner, and they haven't even built the company out yet. And they're sitting there just talking about the business and talking about where they're going to go. And just like, hey, man, like we're millionaires. We just haven't gotten paid yet. And that was his whole mentality in life. They ended up selling that company to Warren Buffett for billions.
Yeah.
Or a couple $100 million. I can't remember what it was. It's a lot of money, a lot more money than I've seen in my life. And it's just funny when you mention that yet. It's so simple, but yet we don't use it. We don't put that positive spin on things, and we have all these self-limitations. So the minute you mentioned yet, I got really excited. Just because I know how important that word adding on to the end of something that you're looking to accomplish can really change it. I talked about having my podcast. It always was yet until I had it out there. Mm-hmm. There's so many different things you can apply it to that'll help you become more successful. And then, of course, the attitude of gratitude is probably one of the most critical things. You have to be grateful for every little step that comes your way and every little victory. I read somewhere, I forgot where I read it from, but they call it a victory vault. I was like, I love that. That's so positive and upbeat. So I just stack little victories into the victory vault.
Yeah, I think the gratefulness was, I'm super transparent. Like I never went to therapy. My mom tried one session when I was 16, and I went in and I was like, I don't know if this is for me. And I have nothing against it. Like I think it's very good for many people, and it works for many people, especially the millions and different types of therapies out there. But for me, like I was like, I know that I have the strength in my body. I just don't know where I'm applying it and what I need it for. And that's where that like super deep dive came from. And I was like, what is my problem? Like, why don't I see myself being that happy? Like for a long time, I was like, I just don't deserve to be that happy. And then I was like, what the hell is wrong with me? Like, why wouldn't I deserve that? And there's this really fine balance, especially in the wellness world, that it's like, be grateful for everything. And it's like, yes, but also like things can suck sometimes and that's okay. Like you can have those feelings and that's fine. I always say like, this is something I use during breakups because man, did I have my fair share of them when I was in my early 20s. But I was like, let yourself wallow in self-pity for one day. Like let yourself have that day where like everything sucks and this is that, and like sit on the couch and eat a bowl of ice cream and watch your movies, or like go and sulk and have that one day. But after that, like pick your damn boots up and let's keep walking. And we need to figure it out, because I do find that like life is way too beautiful to just sit there and sulk. And there, like I said, there are moments that suck, but there are also so many beautiful moments, and you have to open your eyes and see them. And too many people just get so caught up. That's again why I love traveling so much, is like I have encountered some really crappy people on the road. I've also encountered 10 times fold, like some more amazing people that have shapeshifted my life, and in little conversations have truly changed the way I look at things. And I'm like, I always went on these big trips after a breakup. I would go away for like 5 weeks. I would save all my pennies. I had like no money, but I was like, I'm going to make it work. I'm going to figure it out. And those are always the most transformative. And like, do you need to do that? No, that is extreme. I understand that, but that's just how my brain worked. And I was like, okay, this is gonna work it out. But the gratefulness aspect is like, I'm super grateful for those times. I'm super grateful for the times that force me to do the hard things. But I also, again, the wellness industry can be really toxic, and it's like, just be grateful for your body. And I'm like, yes, no, I had those moments. Like I had that time where I was like, thank you, body, for moving. Thank you, body, for waking up. Thank you, body, for feeding me. Like I had to like repeat that over and over again. Like, thank you, body, for telling me I'm hungry. And then thank you, mind, for allowing me to eat. Like that was a really big one for me when I was developing this intuition and understanding of like what my body and how it responds. But I also fell into this trap, and I was just writing a blog post about it today, is that in the wellness industry, it was like, just be grateful and like you can eat whatever the hell you want. And it's like, actually, no, like I went through that. I went from one end where I was like restricting everything I ate, and then I flip flopped it the other way. And I was like, I'm just going to eat and drink whatever I want. And I still, when I was over here, was like very unhappy. And I still didn't love what I was looking back at. I didn't feel confident going out in the world. And I was like, okay, how can I be grateful for the body I'm in? Like not hate it, and be grateful that it's still doing the waking up and the XYZ that I was explaining, but I can also want better. And I think that's where we falter. It's like you either have to be one way or the other. And it's like, no, you can still appreciate your body, but how do you tip that scale to be in a place in mind that like is really a place you want to be, a place you're proud of, and a place that you work on each and every day, even in the smallest ways. And sometimes that looks way too unattainable. So that's where the comes in the yet. And it's the, I can have a happy life. I may not have all of the things, but I can have at least one thing today. And so it's all these like little nuances, and you have to figure it out person by person. And that's why these giant things that are promising you all these things, it's like, okay, but are they actually looking at who you are as a human being and what you want personally? And are they teaching you how to do that? Or are they just going to give you a framework, a play-by-play of what they think is the happiest life? And yeah, it just...
They try and fit a square peg into a round hole. That's where a lot of industry, there's a huge issue with that. I fully agree. I knew right where you're going with it when you mentioned. I was like, "Yep." Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it reminds me of the military. It's they try and put you in a one size fits all type scenario, and it isn't. Each person. God, I hate this phrase so much, but we are all unique snowflakes.
I've never heard that.
We are all different in some regard. There's no two people exactly the same, whether it's the way our minds work, the way our bodies look. There is no I guess there are identical twins, but still their minds don't work the same.
No.
So, and there's still going to be a little nuances in terms of physical features, which again, going on tangent with that, but we can't fit everyone in the same box. So I love the fact that you focus on how each person is different and embrace those differences so they can help embrace themselves too, and understand that it's okay to be different, and that you need to understand who you are first before you can change anything that you need to change. So that's key in coaching that I think is commonly missed. I think people find success as coaches. I know you don't like the term coaches. I'm going to find another term for you. Don't worry. That's my goal today. I'll send you an email with it. But since we don't have that right now, I'm going to keep saying coach. But like a lot of coaches will throw you into like the same thing. They're like, hey, this worked for this client. Well, they have a similar story here. So let's say that it's going to work here. And you just do the same little thing over and over again, let alone the network marketing health coaches. Ooh, that's a whole different ball game. We're like, oh, hey, we lose this, and take these supplements and you're guaranteed to lose weight. I'm like,
don't even get me started on the supplements.
I could do a whole episode on that alone, because I have gone on those and like done a couple of them. One, because I was just at a point where I was desperate to change. Yeah. And then two, because I just want to see how unhealthy it was so that I could figure out better ways to do things. So the second time around, I was like, okay. It's like, yeah, look at all the garbage in this product. And now I understand some of these companies have healthy products, of course, but the way that they were strict is insane to me. Like, okay, you can eat this, but don't work out. Huh? You don't want me to exercise for 2 weeks? That doesn't make any sense. Like, how am I going to get healthier and stronger if I'm not? I was like, one, I'm malnourishing myself with this diet plan. And then like, now you're telling me I can't work out too? Like, okay, cool. Yeah. And obviously it didn't work. But it is what it is.
Yeah, it's really hard. So I am in this space where I don't want you to have anxiety anymore when it comes to eating food. Like, I want you to be able to go out to social settings. But again, I do this through education, and the supplements is medically, I'm not a doctor. I'm sure that there's certain things that you need to go on, and I can't tell you to take them or not to take them. But I think there's a lot of fast fashion when it comes to diets. And I always say, like, I'm in the business, like the business I'm in is a hard business to sell because it's not fast fat loss. I'm like, I will help you transform your life. Like, I'm going to help you understand your body, and you'll see these results soon, but they're not going to be the 30-pound, 30-day results. Like, they're going to be the sustainable, we move forward. And I really try to stay away from ever talking about supplements unless it's like, get vitamin D. And if like it's a really crappy winter, I live in Boston, then yeah, vitamin D supplements will probably help you. Like, this is when you should take them. But the way I teach is like going back really to holistic foods. And it's what makes most sense to me. Like, what came from the earth? What is natural? How do I eat this? And how do I formulate a plate around it? And why am I eating this? Why am I eating this? Why am I eating this? Like, why is that important? What does that do for my body? And I always say, like, I hate feeling like shit, but I love eating food. And so I like love food. And you'll actually find that with a lot of people with eating disorders, they like love food. They love it so much that their whole life centers around it. And so it's like, how do I help my clients not make their life center around food? Like, how can they go eat food, know that they're supporting themselves with nourishing meals, and that they're probably through these foods getting everything they really need? Again, unless there's like a medical side of it that they need to bring in. But a lot of it is like, let's just go back to the basics. How did we eat for centuries? How should we eat now? Like, this is what's going to feel best. But also, I love cake. Like, I'm not going to tell you to not eat cake. I'm going to tell you to probably not eat cake every day. That's not great. But I mean, my husband brought me home a carrot cake last night, and I was like, let's go. This is my favorite. And
same.
Yeah. So yeah, the supplements part is like that. They're going to sell you that. And I promise you go on the supplements. It might work for 20 days, but you're going to pull away from it. Whereas like my framework is it's primal. Where I got my certification is primal health. And there's like 10 laws of primal health. And like, don't get me wrong. Also in that group, there are psychos. Like they're like, you ate raw honey. Like, how dare you eat sugar? And I'm like, raw honey is good for you. It has so many benefits to eating it. But, or they'll like be like, well, I had a piece of bread today. And they're like, that's not primal. Like, how dare you? And it's like, that's also an eating disorder. Like, that's not good for you. It like makes you scratch your head. You're like, okay, I understand we all start. I do think that a lot of people start from a good place and they're like, I want to help people. But when you're not in that morally ground, like not everyone can do and take, and taking probably isn't always the best. Like you can't erase a bad diet. You can't erase a bad mentality. It just doesn't go away with a pop of a pill or this new protein shake or something. Or I don't want AG1 to come after me, but that's not going to fix all your problems. Like I know they support like every podcast out there, but it's not going to fix all your problems. And where the problems and the issues really start from within. But again, we live in this fast culture of where you think that you can just fix something with a pill or the newest, I don't know, pre-workout.
You mean Ozempic's not going to make you better?
No,
he says with a slightly straight face.
Yeah. No, I have I'm not a doctor. I can't speak on it, but I obviously have my concerns morally and consciously with people just taking certain things because again, it's fast, but not understanding the side effects that could come afterwards if they ever stop it.
That's fair. Yeah, I'm with you. With that, we're getting a little close to the end here. So I'm going to ask a couple questions. Before I do that, I just want to make sure that you have an opportunity to talk about anything you might have missed on. And then also just let people know where they can find you if they want to reach out for coaching, anything.
Yeah. Yeah. So I feel like I've touched on everything. Like there's so much that I could probably still talk about, but I think I got a pretty well encompassed chat in. And I guess what I have right now out is my retreat. I have one going to Morocco in October. I only have a few more spots left. And on these retreats, it's very much like I'm a yoga instructor as well. So we do yoga daily, but it's not yoga focused. It's very much for Morocco specifically. We're going to go out and we're traveling a lot. So if you're not up for that, if you want to just go sit at the beach, this is not the retreat for you. But it's very much a cultural immersion because, like I said, travel has changed my life in so many different ways. It's made me so confident. And I understand that when I went out at 2021, that I might have been a little naive and I got myself into some things and I did a lot of solo traveling, which taught me a lot. But I understand that not a lot of women want to do that. Or they're like, I don't have that confidence just to go do and be alone. So I create these retreats for people that want to travel, want to form a community, want to get moving, eat really good food, and just have fun. So Morocco is coming up. It's October 12th through the 20th, 2024. I'm so excited about it. It's 8 days or 8 nights, 9 days. And we're going to be in the desert camping. We're going to be in a little beach town village. We're going to have some tea with a nomadic family, which is awesome. They travel through the desert, learn about their experiences, all while doing yoga, eating, having fun. They can find all that information as well as signups for health coaching. I'm starting to launch a new program. And that's a 12-week program where we, again, form a community. For me, community is really important. And so it'll be like every Monday we have conversations, workshops. Every week you get weekly emails with informative information. You can ask me questions at any time. And if they want to add on to that, they can also do one-on-ones with me if they really want to do a deep dive. And so if they want to stay in touch with all of that, you can find me on my website, which is just my name, Tia DiVincenzo.com. I'm assuming you'll put a link down because my last name is not the easiest to spell. And And you can find me on Instagram at Tia DiWellness, where all that comes up. Or if you really want to stay in touch for workshops I do, you can sign up for my newsletter. So.
Sweet. All right. So plenty of ways for people to get in touch with you. So that's perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. So I have 2 questions I like to ask. The first one, you cannot use your John Lennon quote. So if there's any quote that you could live by or even have as your epitaph, so have on your gravestone, what would that quote be that describes you and what you want to portray?
I know this one well. My dad said it to me growing up my whole life, and it's something I definitely live by. He who dies with the most memories wins. And yeah, I don't know if I love the win term, but it's something that just has been with me my whole life. And so all I just look at life is we're creating more memories, more time, more love, more connections. Connections are the most important. So yeah, I just try to make memories.
At the end of the day, I mean, talk to anyone as they get older. They don't worry about the fact that they have the money or wherever they accumulate it. It is about those memories. Before my grandpa passed, he was always talking about the little trips he did, times he had with my grandma, the grandkids, everything. So I love that quote. That is amazing. And you're probably not a huge fan of the wins factor, but I agree with it. I think it is a win. The one who has the most amazing, most memories is clearly winning in life. They lived their life.
Yeah.
So last one. If you could have any superpower, well, let's backtrack. So what would you think your superpower is? And then the second part of that would be, if you could have any additional superpower, what would that be? It doesn't have to be comic book style superpower, but it could be if you like.
Okay. I think my superpower now is I'm very empathetic. I'm very understanding of others' emotions, and almost empathetic to the point that I take on a lot. But I've now found that as a superpower. I relate to a lot of people. I like being in people's safe space, and I found that time and time again. So I would say that's my superpower now. And I think about this question all the time, which I think is so funny that you ask it, because I can't, in my however many years, I don't want to reveal my age, but that I've been alive, I can't come up with an answer. Like, I want to read people's minds, but I think that will, as the empathetic part, I think that will hurt my feelings if I knew really what was going through people's heads. Maybe teleportation. As I get older, I really hate airports, and I travel a lot because I love traveling, but I'm starting to really hate the airport. So I'll go with teleportation today.
Think about how quick and easy that Morocco trip would be.
I know.
I'm with you. So yeah, teleportation is my go-to. People are like, oh, I'd like to fly. I was like, that's cool. I get it. And people are like, oh, it's because I want to look at life through a different perspective.
Yeah.
And it's cheesy, but also I understand. It will force you to look at things differently. So that part's cool. But I'm like, right? For me, I was like, no, I just want to get to places without a hassle. I want to know that I can snap my fingers and be in Paris or wherever. But
then again, I have trouble. Again, you're gonna be like, you're overthinking this way too much, which is another quote I love, is underthink things. Just go for it. But I love being on an airplane because I feel like it's the only time in my life that I can truly just shut off. And I'm like, no one can reach me. Whoops, sorry. So I'm I would take that away. But sometimes I love sitting in the car rides is when I usually catch up with friends. So I'm like, there's always these catch-22s, or I would say time travel as well. But I feel like I would mess up the rhythm of the world.
Yeah,
to go.
Too many complications. You'd mess up. Yeah, just so easily. It'd be so easy just to mess up timelines. And yeah, this is a whole nother topic at that point. I can go down a deep, dark hole there for that.
Yeah.
But I'm with you. I'm tracking. I get you. Well, cool. So thank you so much for being on here. And thank you for answering the questions, being so open with everything. It's been an absolute blast. I want to thank all the audience that will eventually be tuning into this when it releases. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd really appreciate if you can hit that subscribe button, leave a detailed review. Also, check us out on Instagram at Everyday Elevations. This is where we post a lot of exclusive content, some of our latest updates, podcast release dates, things like that, as well as you get a little peek behind the scenes of me while I'm doing training for various things and as I'm on my growth journey. With that, again, thank you so much for tuning in.